Today we're going to be putting on the inner primary, putting on the compensator, the clutch assembly. So yeah, we got our parts laid out here on the floor. We got a clutch, got a compensator, got the hardware laid out, got the tools that we need. Got to get the stator installed, got to get the inner primary prepped. We got to change out the seal, put the inner primary on. Yeah, here we go. All right, so the first thing we need to do to get our primary installed is we need to get the stator put back in. So there's a rubber seal here plug. It's part of the stator, and that needs to go through the case in this hole. So make sure you get it all, make sure it's nice and clean. I like to put a little soapy water on there just to kind of help get it in. Just feed it through the case here. I want to be careful not to tug on the wires too much. Conduit's hanging up here. Get that conduit through. This one's a little bit of a pain because there's a oil cooler right in the way, oil cooler line. So once you get that plug started, just grab this and gently just pull through till you see this little mushroom end come out. Put that on there, line up the holes, and get our 4 screws. I'm going to put a little bit of Loctite on these. Line them up. Get them started. All right, so now we're going to get our stator screws ran down. Just get them down crisscross. You want to tighten the stator down onto the case evenly. These screws aren't that big. You don't want to snap them off. It'd be a bad day. Have a snapped off screw in the case. So once you get them just down kind of finger tight, we're going to go ahead and torque them. And these get torqued to 70 inch-pounds. Got our inch-pound torque wrench here. Set that 70 right there. And then when you torque, you want to kind of do a little bit, and then we're going to do a full swing. There you go. You don't want to like go back and forth like this. You want to just do one sweeping motion. And when it clicks, stop. And then I like to just go back and double check them. Just hit them one more time. There we go. Stator's installed. Okay. Get the plug plugged here into the regulator. Just line it up, press it in, and then hit the little lock tab. All right. And pull this protector off the end of the crankshaft. What we want to make sure is that, because this has a different crank, we had sent it out to a Dark Horse. We just want to make sure, get a flat edge, and make sure on the end of this spacer that when you take a flat edge and you go around it, it's not going to hit the coils of the stator, or else you'll ground it out. Okay, so now what we got to do is we got to install a rotor. So we got a rotor here. Just kind of clean it off. Try to work clean. What you got to do is you got to line up these splines. You want to get a good hand on that because these are magnets. They're a little hard, so when it gets close, it's going to want to suck it in. Don't get your fingers caught in there, but have a good grip on it, just so it goes on like that. All right, now we need to get this ready to put the inner primary. So we need to change out the O-ring here on the stator. Or not the stator, sorry, on the starter. And pull that off. Clean the oil off of here. Got our O-ring for our starter. What you want to do is you want to take a little bit of motor oil, put it on there. Kind of just lube up the snout right there. All right. We're going to take our inner primary little interconnect gasket here, line up these dowels with the holes in the case. Press that on there. Of course, you want to make sure all your surfaces are clean. Okay, what we're going to do too is we're going to take a little motor oil and put it on this race on the transmission end shaft here. Blow those holes out, make sure you don't got any Loctite built up in there. Okay, now what we got to do is we got to prepare our inner primary. We got our inner primary here. We're going to just go ahead and pop this seal out. Just kind of work it around. Careful not to gouge the case. Just pop that seal out like that. Want to clean. Take your rag, just wipe in here, get all that oil out. Clean where the starter goes. Let's clean all these surfaces. If you got any like Loctite built up in here, just try to clean that out. Got the surface that's going to go on that interconnect gasket. All right. What we're going to do is we're going to take our new seal. What I like to do is I like to put a little bit of red Loctite on the outside. It helps lubricate it as it goes in and also keeps it in the case. So what you could do is you could just kind of press that in flush. Just get it going. Work it around. If you can't get it in by hand, just take a little hammer and just gently work it around. You could hear the sound change when you're hitting the seal. It sounds like plastic, and then when you hit the primary, it sounds like metal. You don't want to go too crazy. You don't want to flare that aluminum over, but just enough to get that seal in flush all the way around. Now that we got our inner primary cleaned up and the new seal in, take a little bit of that motor oil, rub it on the lip of that seal, put some in the bore where the starter is going to go, put a little oil on the bearing in there. Make sure you got your O-ring on the starter. Make sure you got your gasket on the case. Make sure your race is lubed up. Go to this one being a dyno, we got to guide the shifter through the inner primary while you line up your primary on the race here. You want to make sure that sits down deep in there. There's little dowels that go in there. All right. And you always want to make sure you put your rotor on first, especially with these 6-speeds. It doesn't fit through this opening. There's a lip here. So you always want to make sure you put your stator and your rotor. You know, same thing if you had to replace your stator, you would need to pull your inner primary off. All right, well, we got some new bolts here. And the primary bolts, these come with a lock patch on it, and they also have a seal. You don't need to put any kind of silicone or anything on these, right? Just put them in here. Like that. And now we're going to run these down. You want to do a crisscross pattern. And because of that lock patch, sometimes they get a little, you feel a little resistance. You just want to run them down just till they bottom out. You don't want to go too crazy because we're going to torque them with the torque wrench. Just run them down until they bottom out in the case. I like using these old speed handles when you don't have air tools available. So if you start feeling that resistance, back it off a little bit. Back it off and then run it back in. That Harley lock patch is some serious stuff. Again, you don't want to snap off a bolt. This glove's getting all bound up. Just kind of work it in and out. It's usually these transmission ones that are a little tougher. Might do is grab an actual ratchet for this. Here's my extension here. Kind of go back and forth with it. So come in, come out a little bit. And you can feel it starts going. Not putting too much force on it. Probably about 10 foot-pounds. Okay, that one's bottomed out. Back this one off a little bit. Just working it out, be patient. Don't go grab an air ratchet or something and probably snap the bolt off. All right, now that they're all bottomed out, I'm gonna take our 3/8 torque wrench here. We're gonna torque these to 21 foot-pounds. I know the spec's a little lighter than that, but over the years found that 21 is a good torque for these. So you go 20. One, and again, crisscross pattern here. Nice sweeping motion. One movement. You know, if you can't, if you think that it's going to hit right here, try to take a different position. Like I said, you can kind of do a little bit and then come back for a full swing like that. Go back, check them. All right. Now what we got to do is get our starter installed. You just kind of reach over here and just line up the bolts and the dowels. Kind of just wiggle it in. Sometimes you could go from the other side and there we go. Came in, your bolt lined up. Good to have a long 1/4 inch ball Allen. With an extension. Got to come from the other side. See right here. Hello. Okay. Put it in. Careful not to touch the starter post. I know. Step one in the service manual is disconnect the battery. But you know, we like to live life on the edge. So just run it in until it stops, and then we're going to do the rear one. Bolt in there. This one's a little harder on the dynas. You got the battery box and everything in here. Just run those starter bolts down evenly, and we're going to go back and snug them up. They don't need to be too tight. If you want, you could use your torque wrench, but just snug. I probably wouldn't go the 20 pounds on these. I'd probably go 15 foot-pounds. All right. Got the starter in. Try to keep your tools organized as much as possible. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to peel this little tower gasket off. It's like a stick-on gasket. Don't want to forget that. Clean that surface. All right, so we got our new tower gasket. It comes on this little page. It's got adhesive on the back side, so that's why you want to make sure this is nice and clean. Slip that on there like that. Press it on. Okay, now we're ready to install our compensator parts. We got our splined little hub here. Slide that on. Then we got our spring pack. Now the spring pack, it goes in a specific way. Make sure you don't have them like stacked up against each other. They should oppose each other like this. So there's like a concave, they should oppose each other. Right? You don't want to have them like this. You want to have them, and it starts with the biggest ones. So you put the big ones on, 2 big ones, then you have 2 medium ones. Same thing, don't have them spooning each other. You want to have them opposed like this. All right, then you have your smallest one. Again, don't have it spooning. It's a funny term, but I don't know how other way to say it. You want to have it opposed so that it's facing out. Then you're going to take your ramp assembly, you know, inspect it, make sure there's no cracks in it. Put that guy on there like that. Now we're going to grab our clutch assembly. All right. So we got our compensator chain clutch hub. Kind of have to juggle this, get it around the shaft there. What I like to do is I like to line up the compensator first and kind of hold that, sometimes even hold it with your elbow while you get the splines. This clutch hub has splines that need to slide onto that main shaft. Just kind of work it in like that. Make sure your chain doesn't get bottomed out on the primary case. All right, now we need to take our bolt, cotton bolt, put some red Loctite on there, take our motor oil. I want to put some oil down here on the flange so we get a good torque. Some Loctite on the threads there. I'm going to run that down. Got our T70 socket. T70. And while you're tightening that, hold the chain up. That'll keep it from getting bound up on the inner primary right there. You don't want to damage that gasket surface. just run this down just till it's bottomed out. Alright guys, so we got the correct lockup bar here. So for the Softails Dynas, they have a longer primary. You need the longer bar. The baggers take a shorter bar. And then the Sportsters have even shorter lockup bar. So we're going to use the long one. You don't want to use that plastic lockup tool that you used to use on the 5-speed twin cams. You could break the case. So what you do, you just put this in here. We're going to be tightening the compensator first. So we want the bar to lock up when we go clockwise. So we're going to take our big foot-pound torque wrench. We're going to crank this up. 175 foot-pounds. Me personally, I like the old school torque wrenches. Maybe just because I'm cheap and don't want to spend the money on a digital one. But I've had these for years and they've always did me good. So what you're going to do is you need to take a good bite, kind of come back here, and you're going to need a one, and then here we go up for a full torque. There we go. Let's hit it again. 175 foot-pounds. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put our clutch hub nut on our clutch. I'm going to put some red Loctite on here. These are reverse thread. So instead of righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, it's lefty-tighty. So remember that if you're trying to take it apart, you're going to have to go the opposite direction to remove the nut. So counterclockwise puts it on. Just run this down with the ratchet. All right. Gonna adjust our torque wrench. 80 foot-pounds. You want to make sure that your torque wrench is able to torque in reverse. There, 80. This is a 1 3/16 socket. Let's get our lockup bar in here. So we're going to have to go the opposite direction, like that. There you go. Go back the other way to get the bar out. Unload this. We're not going to be using it anymore. All right. Now we're ready to install our chain tensioner. So we get our chain tensioner. A lot of guys have a hard time with these. What I got, I mean, I work at a shop, so I deal with these a lot, is when these are brand new, they come with this little locking tab on here. If you don't have one of these, you could do what I'm about to do, and then just put a zip tie around it. But what you got to do is you got to compress this. Kind of takes a little finagling, but I hold it like that, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to compress this and then pinch this little wedge with my fingers. You don't want it to unratchet. This needs to be fully compressed right here all the way down. And then with this little lockup tool, put it on like that. But again, if you don't have this, once you have it compressed, you can put a zip tie around it. All right, I'm gonna take our bolts. I'm gonna put some blue Loctite on these, just a little bit. Okay, just remember Loctite goes a long way. You don't need to put Loctite on the whole threaded part of the bolt, just the first few threads. And get that up in there. If you have an older primary tensioner setup, it might have some spacers behind it. This one doesn't. So again, just gonna run these in. Use our speed handle and a 1/2-inch socket. Run those in. And then take our foot-pound torque wrench. I'm going to torque these to 20 foot-pounds. Go 20. Again, big, long, full sweeping motions here. Kind of just go back and check it. 20 pounds, it's not much, but that's the spec. Okay, now that we have that on there, we could remove this lockup tool. These tensioners are self-adjusting. All right. What I like to do after getting this all together is rotate it. You know, you don't want to put your cover and fill it full of fluid and everything, and then go to rotate and it's all bound up. So it's good to rotate it right now. You know, make sure you have it in neutral, and with your spark plugs out, you can rotate this by hand fairly easy. Just make sure everything spins nice. Make sure you don't hear any abnormal noises. Now what we can do is we can put it in our adjuster and adjust the clutch. Make sure you got your push rod there in your main shaft. Here's your adjuster. Has a lock nut, the adjuster. Put this in there. Line up the little tabs. Take your new snap ring with your snap ring pliers. Sometimes these can be a little difficult, but practice, you'll get it. See? They pop off. These pliers are kind of worn out. So make sure it gets fully seated down in the little groove there. There we go. Check it all the way around. All right. So now we're ready to adjust our clutch. So what we got to do is we got to collapse our clutch cable. You want to take all the free play out of it. So you got to loosen the jam nut. You don't need to be that tight, but just loosen the jam nut. Run the adjuster in. Fully collapse it. And we're going to adjust the clutch at the hub. So with our clutch cable fully collapsed at the adjuster and our lever pulled in, I like to pull the lever in. With your finger on the lever, turn the adjuster clockwise or in, and you'll begin to feel the lever move out. And when that lever stops moving, you have taken out all the free play. So just kind of go back and forth so you feel that movement stop. Okay, you don't want to load this up too much. If you load it up too much, you're going to start opening up the clutch. You're going to start compressing the spring. Just enough where you feel all that free play is out. And then what we're going to do is we're going to back this out 3/4 of a turn. So there's a half, 3/4. Then with our 11/16 socket, I'm going to hold the adjuster with the Allen wrench and just run that in like that. The spec on this is 1/2 to 3/4, so we set it at 3/4 so that we could give this a bump like this, and it's going to be right there between 1/2 and 3/4. Now what we're going to do is we're going to adjust our cable. We're going to take out the slack. So just run this adjuster out until the lever is extended up at the perch. Sometimes you want to just work the clutch in and out a few times. You'll notice that there will be a little extra free play. And what you're looking for up at the lever is about like a 1/16 of free play, about a nickel's thickness. Try to get you guys a shot up here. All right, so what we're looking for is the free play right here between the clutch cable and the perch. So what I do is I pull the lever in while I grab a hold of the cable and pull it out. So you release the lever and then you see that free play. That's what you want right there. It's about the thickness of a nickel. If it's too tight, collapse the cable a little bit. If it's too loose, extend the cable a little bit, but we're good right there. All right, so now we got our compensator on, our clutch on, everything's torqued. Got our primary tensioner on, all that's torqued. We got our clutch adjusted, the cable adjusted. Make sure if you have a Dyna or anything that has this mid-control shift shaft that you got that tower gasket on there. And we're ready to put on our cover, primary cover. So you got your new gasket. Make sure all your surfaces are clean, that there's no oil down here at the bottom. Put your gasket on here. This guy's missing a dowel. All right, gonna have to work with that. Then we're gonna put some blue Loctite on our screws. Remember, just a little bit, just on the very few threads. I like these little sticks. They work pretty good. They don't end up all over, you know, especially if you're mobile. This stuff doesn't run all over the place. If you forget to close it or falls over in your toolbox or something. All right, let's get our 3/16 Allen. That on our handy speed wrench. And grab our cover. Wipe that down. You know, just make sure everything's nice and clean. You don't have any oil anywhere. All right, so I think what we're gonna have to do, because this bike doesn't have, it's missing one of the dowels. Put the gasket on the cover. Put the screw in it. That. So we got the screws holding the gasket here. That up on here. Got to get that shaft through the cover. There we go. Get these screws started. That's why I like using the speed handle too, because I could have the handle up against my chest while my other hand's holding the cover. You know, if you have one of them at work, I got a cordless, like a little battery powered impact. That works pretty good too. You just want to be careful not to go crazy and run them in. You know, there's only 1/4 screws. They could strip out fairly easy. All right, just run them in until they're bottomed out. Put all the screws in, then we'll go around and do the torque sequence here. It's always a good practice, just crisscross from the center out. I want to thank you guys for checking out the video. If this is helping you so far, go ahead and hit the like, subscribe, notifications, all the above, share, comment. I'd like to hear you guys' feedback. I'd like to get to know some of you guys. You know, I've been doing this YouTube thing for about a month now. Been really enjoying it, learning a lot. So we can get these screws ran in. All right. So on these 6 speeds, you have 4 long screws. Those go on the front of the primary. Those go all the way through the inner into the engine case. Then you have the shorter ones, and those are going to be the remainder. The old 5-speed baggers had 2 different length screws also, but they were in a little different position. All right, let's put the last screw in. We'll get ready to torque them. All right. So we're going to take our inch-pound torque wrench. I like using the inch-pound torque wrench on the 1/4-inch screws, on the smaller screws, just because it's an easier feel. Sometimes, you know, if you use the bigger torque wrench, it's a little hard to feel. It's got more leverage. So I like using the small one compared to this bigger one. With this big one, you would go to 10 foot-pounds. So when you go down to inch-pounds, it'd be 120 inch-pounds. So we're going to set this small torque wrench to 120 inch-pounds. Like I said, these 1/4-20 screws, especially if they've been on and off a few times, they're real easy to strip. So 120 inch-pounds, and we're going to start from the bottom. And we're going to go crisscross. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then we'll go this way, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. And again, we're just going to go for that sweeping motion till you get that click. See how light it is? You could barely hear it. So if you were to use that foot-pound, you might miss it. All right, then we're going to come over here to the rear. Start at the bottom. Give a shout out to Gil if he's watching. He was my teacher when I was apprentice at the first shop that I worked at. So about 99% of what I know came from him. So Gil, if you're watching, appreciate it. Love you. Should have listened to your advice to learn about computers, but in your words, I was a dumb kid and wanted to work on Harleys. Man, it's been a while. Coming up on 15 years. I think longer than that, actually. I think it's 18 years, yeah. 2005. So again, we did the crisscross pattern, starting from the center, going out, and then I'm just going around, making sure they're all torqued, that I didn't miss anything. Now we're good. All right, got all that on. And give one little last wipe down. Okay, and we're ready to put in our fluid. Make sure you got your drain plug in. Make sure you got your drain plug in. I don't know how many times that I've started putting fluid and the drain plug was out and it's all over the lift. Go ahead and put in some fluid. Get our funnel. Pour the fluid in there. Most primaries take at least a quart. You want to fill it up just till the oil reaches the bottom of the pressure plate. Make sure your bike's level. Know that you don't have the rear wheel jacked way up in the air. So if you do, then all your fluid's going to be up here in the front of the primary and you're going to have a low reading. Then when you lower it down, it'll be overfilled. See if I could bring you guys in here. Show you the level. Little hard to see. I don't know if you guys can see that. The level's right at the bottom of the pressure plate. So the pressure plate is this round. You have your spring, and then there's like an aluminum. There's like an aluminum edge. See up here? There's a black, that spring, and then there's that aluminum edge that goes all the way around. You want your level to be right at that aluminum edge. You can see it right there. The level's right there. Now we're ready. We could put on our derby cover. All right, so we got our derby cover or clutch cover, whatever you want to call it. Change out this O-ring here. Take out the old one. Clean out this groove. That. Take our new gasket, set that in there. All right. I'm a little OCD. I like to put where it says HD, have that facing at the top. Unless your cover has like something written on it, you always want to make sure that's positioned rightly, but I like to do it that way. And then these screws, don't put any Loctite on them. If anything, put a little anti-seize, because you're gonna take these in and out for during services to adjust the clutch and stuff, and they're just small little Torx heads and they round out real easy. So don't put Loctite. Put a little anti-seize if anything. I'm just going to run those in. And then torque them to 80 inch-pounds. Alright, let me find my socket here. Again, crisscross pattern. Don't go all the way down. The way that O-ring is, you want to tighten it down evenly so it doesn't roll over. All right, there you go. Your primary's on. You know, being that this is a dyno, we're gonna have to put our shifter on, put on our floorboard. It's pretty self-explanatory. If it's a bagger, you're gonna do the same thing. So that was a general inner primary installation. Thanks for checking out the video. Once again, like, subscribe. If you got any questions, drop it in the comment. I would love to help you out. So yeah, Matt, Side Yard Mechanic. Thanks. You got it.